Hi, my name is Genesis. I'm currently 20 years old, and I was born and raised in the southern mountains of North Carolina, where you can find the most beautiful views. However, I'm currently living in Tennessee for college. But without further ado, this is my cultural background story. This is my mom when she was a teenager. She was born in Guerrero, Mexico. She grew up there for most of her childhood until she immigrated to Southern California when she was 14 years old. This is my dad. He was born and raised in Jalisco, Mexico. He was also an immigrant and went to Southern California when he was 20 years old. While living in Los Angeles, California, they met, became friends, and eventually got married. After they got married, they moved to the east side of the United States, where they settled in North Carolina. Once they settled in North Carolina, they decided to have my older brother, Josh. After having him around for a couple of months, they concluded that they needed another child. Therefore, they had me, and we became a family of 4. We were a happy family until there was a plot twist in the middle of our journey. In 2001, my dad traveled to Mexico for a family visit. When he tried to come back to the States, he was denied his return because of what was going on in the United States during that time, 9/11. My dad had to stay in Mexico for an entire year. After a year passed, he was able to come back. In 2002, my mom's permission to stay in the United States was denied. Therefore, my mom, my brother, and I moved to Baja California, Mexico, and lived there for an entire year with my grandma, waiting for my mom to obtain her citizenship. Here is where I began to experience Mexican culture firsthand. Mexican culture is super friendly. I could run around the streets with a ton of kids, and there was no supervision. For every meal, I had the typical rice, beans, tortillas, and eggs. There are multiple vendors in the streets, and grocery stores are basically flea markets. The temperature is hot year-round normally. After a year passed of living there, we were able to return to the United States for good. Living here in the United States is a totally different culture. The neighborhoods are not as friendly, and people are always super busy. You don't find many vendors in the streets, but you can always find restaurants and fast food restaurants everywhere you go. And we typically have all 4 seasons here. When people ask me, "Where are you from?" Well, that's a tricky question for me to answer. My ethnic background is Latino. However, I lived in the United States for most of my life. I practice traditions from both cultures. I celebrate 4th of July, and I celebrate Thanksgiving like every normal American. But I also speak Spanish, eat Mexican food, and understand their culture. When I'm around Latinos, they tell me, "You're not really Mexican because you don't speak like us, and you don't have the same customs that we have." When I'm around Americans, they tell me, "You're not really American because you're tan, you speak Spanish, and you come from a different culture." I'm constantly battling to find a real cultural background. I have a large variety of friends. Each person is from a different cultural background. I have learned to accept and learn from each culture. For some people, I may not be 100% Latino nor 100% American. However, I have learned to embrace both cultures and be a part